Hello everyone, welcome to Global Online University. I, the educator Dr. Trupti, is going to teach you today unit number 2 that is research aptitude for UGC NTA NET paper 1. Let's first have a glance exactly what this unit will be covering. So let's see what exactly the unit number 2 research aptitude consists of. It will be consisting research, it will be consisting methods of research, it will talk about steps in research, it will take us to thesis and article writing, it will then focus on application of ITC in research, and then we'll be having research ethics. So one by one, all the lectures will be covering the subtopics of research aptitude, and then we will accordingly go for the final revision in the form of the question answers, which will help you to give a perfect revision for the unit. Now, today we'll be starting with the first topic, that is research, which is under research aptitude. So let's understand what exactly you mean by the word research. Okay, so if you see this word, the word itself is divided into two words, that is re and search. So when we talk about searching something, finding something which is already done, but we are doing it again, I mean to say, we have to be careful, we have to be systematic, we have to be logical, we have to be we have to study in detail in order to investigate and experiment with an intention to or a aim to solve the problem. So like for example, maybe the problem is studied earlier, but the problem does not is not resulted, or the resulted suggestions, recommendations or conclusions have not met the expectation. So what it will be done, with the help of other researchers or the new upcoming researchers will research. It means that they will start searching again the information, where they will be very careful, they will be systematic in gathering the information, they will be logical. It means there will be some scientific way of finding a purpose for that study. It will be a detailed way. They, with the help of all this, they will investigate and experiment and aim to solve the problem. So when this cycle gets completed, we say that we say that research is done. Okay, so research is basically a process which is to be taken very carefully, systematically, logical, in detail, in order to investigate and experiment with an intention to solve the problem. So we come up with a problem, but we do not look at the problem as a problem. We ensure that the problem is solved with the help of our research. So when we go ahead with the purpose of research, now why? What is the intention of doing a research? Why do we need a research to be done? So basically, starting with to gain insight into the process for which research problem or hypothesis is formulated. So a research problem is studied, but we make a tentative assumption for that problem, and then we start ahead, or we find out something new, a new insight, and based on that, we try to solve the problem. The next is to investigate the characteristics of individual or a group. Yes, the purpose of the research is to understand the characteristics either of an individual or a group of people. Okay, next will be to determine the frequency of occurrence or something associated with occurrence, like what is the nature of occurrence of that problem, how long, or what exactly care has to be taken, what details has to be noted. So this can be possible only under what? Under the purpose of research. Next is to experimentally and scientifically understand or study the cause and effect relationship, why things happen and what is the effect of that relationship. So when we talk about all these things, basically we are talking about what? We are talking about a reason or a purpose of research. So when, in case, if someone is asking, or if you get an objective question, so basically what is the purpose of research? To gain new insights, that is new discoveries, to solve the problem, or to formulate the hypothesis, that is to find the tentative statements for the problem, to investigate, to determine the frequency of the occurrence of particular thing, and at the end to understand it, to study it, to do an experiment, and to study the cause and effect relationship of the given of the given problem. So that comes what as a purpose of your research. Going ahead with general objectives of research. Now, objectives are divided into two parts. One is general, and I have listed a specific objective. So, when we talk about, see, there is nothing wrong between general and specific objectives. But if you want to make your research very systematically, very, you don't want to complicate it, you want to have an understanding of the things in a very well defined manner, you basically go for a specific research. The general objective gives you an overview, whereas a specific objectives help you to study in detail about the research problem. So first, let us understand that what are the general objectives. So basically, general objectives is to review the existing body of knowledge and accordingly to gain insight about that particular concept. So it means that whenever a researcher undertakes or studies a problem, so basically he finds out whether the problem has some whether he has some knowledge about existing knowledge about that particular thing, and what knowledge he has and what new he is learned. So that is to review the existing knowledge and to gain some new insight, new discovery. Next is the general objective is to explore and analyze the problem and suggest the solution. So research does not only help you to help study the problem, but at the end it gives you suggestions, recommendations in the form of conclusion regarding that particular problem. And how this happens with the way of investigating or understanding a new process which helps you to give a new insight. And when we do all this, it's basically to produce and to generate new knowledge. So first of all, whatever you have, you understand that and you gain a new insight. And how you have got the new insight with a way of exploring or analyzing the problem for which you have investigated and understood a new process, and finally you were able to generate a new knowledge. So this is basically the work which in general objectives does. But when we come to specific objectives, yes, we have taken an example of Bloom's taxonomy over here to understand the specific objectives. So the specific objectives, it starts with a knowledge, okay, that is an existing knowledge a researcher has, okay, which is listed down, which is taken as an information. Such knowledge is applied in understanding what new insight you need. Okay, it is applied. It is able to help the researcher to in order to get where exactly the things can be applied in a appropriate way. Next, an analysis is done, a comparison, if possible, comparison is done, study is done, classification is done, categorizing is done. So this is basically done in order to understand in detail or in-depth study about the problem. Once that happens, a synthesis is done in order to create or in order to design, in order to prove what exactly have you worked for that problem. It means that an analysis helps you to study in detail, whereas synthesis gives you a idea about the problem. Then what we do at the end is, coming towards the end, we comprehend it. Okay, we try to explain, we try to understand it, and then an evaluation is just done, where basically the things are judged, they are assessed, they are justified, or they are verified. And this is how specific objectives of research works out or takes place with the help of Bloom's taxonomy in consideration. Going ahead with the characteristics of research. So if you generalize the characteristics of research, yes, it's planned in advance and in systematic approach. I mean to say there is a proper process which is supposed to be followed for research. So we are going to learn that in steps of research. So it is something basically which is planned in advance, which has a systematic approach, a logical approach. That is, it has to be logical, it has to be reliable, and it has to be valid. Okay, whatever type of problem you are studying, in order to study that problem or to understand the problem and find out a conclusion, you should get a logical step of solving that problem. You should get a reliable data and which should be valid. So all this defines the characteristics of research. Whereas why we talk about all these things, because research helps to basically research helps to collect an empirical data, that is a real time data from the actual observation, and this will help us to give a proper conclusion for a research. So whenever you do a research, whenever you're trying to solve a research problem, ensuring that the empirical data, that is real time data, is considered for getting a conclusion for your problem. Now when this process is followed, there has to be accuracy in the procedure. There has to be certain important tests wherever possible to be needs to be done, and a proper measurement should be recorded. So basically, when you come up to sum up the essential characteristics of research, it is nothing but an in-depth analysis, and which helps you to give a detailed study. At the same time, it eliminates the error. So when I say that, or when we say that, what is research characteristics? It's something which is planned, which is studied systematically, which is reliable, which is valid. At the same time, it has an collection of real-time data where the procedure and the measurements are done accurately. At the same time, in-depth analysis is done by eliminating the error. So this is basically the essential characteristics of a research which a researcher should be properly aware of. Coming to the next part, that is what exactly, or what are the types of research paradigms which are held by which are in fact used by the researchers. Or it's basically, paradigm refers to a pattern or a model which a researcher follows in order to understand, or in order to gather information for its for the research, or the research problem which is he has defined. So when we talk about the first paradigm, that is positivism, where the research is based on observation and experimentation. When we talk about constructivism and interpretivism, it is basically it challenges positivism, and it tells that the knowledge is generated through scientific method rather than observations and experimentation. When we talk about the post positivism, it basically is a combination of positive and constructivism, which uses this particular pattern of paradigm while studying a social and educational combination. Coming towards the next paradigm, that is pragmatism. So basically, it works on it works on the realistic point, directing the action towards getting understanding or getting to know about the theory. When we come to transformative paradigm, it focuses on marginalized committee. Like for example, I have mentioned over here clearly, that is senior citizens. Okay, so the transformative paradigm basically works on certain marginalized communities. Coming to the next and the last part of paradigm, that is critical theory, which challenges the dominant way of exploring and explaining certain things required for research. So these are the basic six paradigms which are used by various researchers in order to understand, or this part the it use this type of pattern or a model in going ahead with their research topics or research problems. Then we have to study certain types of research, but before that, let us basically understand the few basic types of research, starting with what? Starting with qualitative and quantitative. So when we talk about qualitative research, it is objective is to explore a phenomena or a process, whereas when we talk about quantitative research, the objective is to confirm the hypothesis. When we understand the basic framework of qualitative research, they are more flexible, whereas quantitative research are rigid. Methods which are used in qualitative research follows in-depth interviews, focus groups, participant observation, and semi-structured part, whereas quantitative research are based on questionnaires, or the methods used are questionnaire, survey, structure observation, and they are highly structured. Now you may definitely get the questions in the form of MCQ. Understanding the objectives or the basic framework for qualitative and quantitative research. When we talk about analytical objectives, so in qualitative, it describes the variation, it explains the relationship, it describes the individual experience, and it helps to describe the group norms or uh, rules. So basically, when we talk about quantitative research, the analytical objective is to quantify the variation, to predict the causal relationship, that is the cause and effect relationship, and to describe the characteristics of the population. The question format which is used in qualitative research is an open-ended format, whereas in quantitative is a close-ended format where yes and no's are the answers when we talk about close-ended. Open-ended has a scope for a description. The nature of data which is used in qualitative is textual, which will be consist or which will be obtained from audio tapes, videotapes, and in the form of field notes. Coming to quantitative research is basically all the numerical values to the responses. When we talk about the nature of study design, there are certain aspects, like language, number of interview questions, which are to be flexible. Okay, the researchers questions are determined, or they are influenced by the response, by from the participants, and the data collection methods and research questions are adjusted accordingly what is learned. That is when we talk about research, study design in qualitative research. But when it comes to quantitative, it is stable. It is not determined depending upon the participant responses, and at the same time the questions are subject to statistical assumptions. So before, we have both the types of research which are done by the researchers, qualitative and quantitative. Both the researchers have various tools in order to understand their results, which a researcher should be aware in order to get the results in either whenever they are using qualitative research, or in case if they are using quantitative research. Now, when we are talking about the next type, that is basic and either you call it as basic or fundamental research, and the next is applied research. So when we aim about, or when we speak about basic research, so just this is basically to expand the existing scientific knowledge, okay, or to generalizations, to make the generalizations, or to formulate a theory. So see the word itself, basic, it's fundamental. Okay, so they basically start with all the fundaments, okay, where they understand the theory, where they formulate the theory. But when we go for applied, it's completely practical. Okay, it is to solve the specific practical problems. It is to make the conclusion, to develop a technology or a technique. Applied, okay, that is application based. The basic research is theoretical, as I said. Applied research is more practical. Scope for the basic research is universal, whereas applied research is very limited because it is based on an application which comes or turns to be successful. When it comes to example of basic research, you're basically to study human behavior to make certain generalizations. Whereas when we speak about applied research, it is to conduct a market research, to evaluate the research study, or to study the social economical trends and to draw a conclusion. So this can be basically done under applied research. Then the last part is deductive and inductive approach. There are a lot of questions which are coming from this. Till date, many students get confused and they just by heart. The problem is that when you get a question which is twisted with an example, there you may get stuck up. So just understand what exactly it means. So when we are talking about qualitative research, oh sorry, when we are talking about deductive research, okay, it talks about quantity, it is quantitative. Whereas when we talk about inductive approach, it is qualitative. Okay, the process for deductive, it's top to bottom approach. I will be showing you next slide. I'll be showing you the detailed process. First understand what it is called, get familiar with the words. So process direction is top to bottom under deductive, whereas it is also called as general to particular. See, these are the topics, these are very basic topics, and on this basic topic itself there are questions which can confuse you. So instead of by hearting, please try to understand how this approaches works. When we talk about inductive approaches, it is bottom to top approach, that is from a particular to a general. Okay, now let me take you to the diagram. Okay, now if you can see, we are talking about deductive approach. That is a top to bottom approach where a theory is known, hypotheses are framed, observation is done, and based on that, whether there will be a rejection or a confirmation for that particular research area or a research problem. On the other hand, if we talk about inductive research, okay, where the observation is done, where the pattern is drawn, a tentative hypothesis is made, and then the theory is developed. So basically, it is nothing but a top-down approach, whereas here it is bottom-up approach. So this is how inductive and deductive works out. So there is, like for example, when you talk about inductive, it is from a specific to general rule. See, specific, one particular thing, specific to a generalized theory we come. But when you talk about deductive, it is something general which we are considering, and we come to a particular conclusion. So this is how it works. There were, as I said, there are very questions every year. You can see this topic definitely, but the topics which are more confusing, like where the students do not understand the concepts and just go on mugging, will definitely create a problem for you in your final examination. In spite of familiar with the topic, you will be not able to crack the topic or the question. So just understand that with the help of this video, you are learning the concept very clearly, and accordingly you can put up with your the practice with your MCQ pattern of question. So that's all for the day in this video. Tomorrow we are going to talk about the types of research in detail. We have almost a lot of researches to do. So tomorrow we are going to take first the topic of types of research. So have a nice day, everyone, and keep learning, ensuring that whatever time you're getting, you're utilizing the time to give yourself a best opportunity to crack this examination, upcoming examination of NTA, that is UGC NTA NET 2021, ensuring that you are not leaving anything in order to prepare yourself best for the examination. So that's all for the day. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow with a new topic of research aptitude. Thank you, everyone.